Welcome to Resume the Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Page, and I'm here to spread the message that you can, in fact, be happy in your career. I'm a former executive recruiter turned career coach, and I am obsessed with learning about why people have chosen their career, what led them to that decision, and how they achieved happiness in the process. So, come join the ongoing conversation that exposes you to career paths of all origins with one thing in common: happiness. So, press play and let's resume the conversation with this week's episode. Welcome to this week's episode of Resume. Today we have Mustafa Ammar. He is the founder and CEO of The Passion MBA, a global coaching company. He is also a life coach who has coached hundreds of professionals around the world to find their dream careers and build their dream businesses by applying his very own coaching methodology, The Passion Blueprint. Mustafa is also the author of a couple of upcoming books, Time to Move On and The Passion Project. Mustafa has lived several career lives in one life. He started as a pharmacist of all things, and basically that was born out of a passion for chemistry. He then became an international diplomat, and then he worked in investment banking as an investment specialist for the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and he was in charge of business development, and he brought lots of investments to various regions, including Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. He is just like 1,000 people in one. So he holds a MBA with distinction from Alliance Manchester Business School in the UK. He holds another master's in diplomatic studies and negotiations and a BA in pharmaceutical sciences. And he is also a certified Canfield trainer in the success principles. Mustafa, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Courtney. Nice having you, with you on the show. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And so he's joining us from Italy, which I have to say I'm a little bit jealous of. But anyway, so I like to start off by asking everybody, if you were at a dinner party or, a networking event or what have you, and somebody came up to you and asked you, which they always end up doing, what do you do? What would your response be?
I like to put myself in if I call it in a shape shifting size, which is can be in different careers. So I'm a shapeshifter. I'm somebody who like to live different lives in in this lifetime. I was a pharmacist at one life of my of my time, and then I was a diplomat. I was a banker, and now I'm trying to help other people as well to do the same because somehow I'm realizing that people who are stuck in their careers and don't know what to do next are a lot. And there is a value in supporting those people to find their dream career and, being unstuck.
Yes. So, being stuck is definitely something that a lot of people have at some point experienced in their career. I want to go back and I want to just kind of lay the foundation because, you said you were a pharmacist, you were a diplomat, you worked in investment banking. All of these things are very, very different. So we're going to definitely touch on that. But before all of that, I want to know what you wanted to be when you were a kid.
Oh, that's a great question because I think, when we were kids, we are dreaming of many things, right? The possibilities are endless. And I think majority of us when we were kids, 5, 6, 7 years old, we were dreaming about being different things. Myself, I thought I want to be a soccer player. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to be an astronaut. 5 or 6 things. And I remember always a situation where I was 6 years old. My family were asking me that question, what you want to be when you grow up. And I say, I think 5, 6 things, and every time they push me back and they say, no, you have to stick to one. You have to choose one. So I grew up trying to conform with that, but that wasn't what inside me. I really wanted to be all of them. And somehow I had to stick to one, at least until I realized that, there are possibilities to do more than one.
Yeah. And, I think that's that's like such a great spot to start on because a lot of people have multiple ambitions, right? And they don't always seem related. And we
Yeah.
are told, starting as, little kids, like you have to kind of pick one, and I think now we're a little more aware that that's not entirely true. But for some, it feels true. So you ended up pursuing, at least initially, chemistry and pharmaceuticals. So where
Yeah.
did that come from?
I continue with my inner struggle of trying to find, okay, what I really want to do, and the idea of being stuck in one career was horrifying to me. It was like really very scary. Like, what if I don't like it? What if I want to change after that? What if I want to do other things? From age 10 to age 16, I was just all between all of these things. One day I'm an engineer, one day I'm a soccer player, one day I'm a diplomat. I didn't have any clue until the time came. I have to decide. And I think the easiest way was to pick a passion. And I say, okay, I think now I have some passion for chemistry. I love it. I think if I would enjoy studying something, it would be chemistry. And I dig deeper and I found that pharmacy has all types of chemistry. So I say, okay, maybe for 5 years, you're going to enjoy studying all types of chemistry. And let's see after that. And that initially was, my reason why I chose pharmacy.
And how long were you in that role for?
5 years, full time on all types of chemistry, pharmacy. I enjoyed it so much. I satisfied a value and a passion, if I could say. But around the same time, the moment I graduated, I knew pharmacy wasn't for me. I knew I wasn't destined to be a pharmacist. And oddly enough, the first job interview was very weird because my boss at that time asked me, where do you want to see yourself 5 years from now? And I give a weird answer, diplomat. And luckily he wasn't focused with me like, what did you say? So I had to say something else because it was weird. Your first job interview, your first job, and then you want to be a diplomat 5 years from now. But that was the case. I knew that it wasn't for me. I knew I had to find another passion. And the other passion was diplomacy. So I thought, okay, I have to prepare myself to be a diplomat. And that was also an old inner struggle. I didn't want to study political theories and, economy. I didn't like economy at that time. I thought, okay, what if you just study something that you love? And then let's see, when you graduate, what you want to do. And I had to prepare myself for 3 years and a half while working as a pharmacist to be a diplomat. Back home in Egypt, it's a national competition, is a competition that runs every 1 or 2 years. Every time you have 2,000 contestants. At the end of the day, you're going to take 20 or 30 out of all of them. So it was very competitive. Obviously, I didn't have chances because I am a pharmacist. I knew nothing about diplomacy. But I believed in my chances. I believed in, that I could do it. And that journey changed my life completely.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to back up. Where did diplomacy come from?
That's a good question. And when I was 10 years old, I saw a person. I didn't know at that time what diplomacy entails, and how to be an ambassador and what you should do as an ambassador. But I happened to meet an ambassador, and I was 10 years old. And when I saw the guy, I was like, wow, wow, this guy is a legend. The way he used to speak, he's multilingual, the way he acts, the way he talked to people. And I was like, wow, I want to be like that person. Also, it was embedded in my subconscious at that time that these types of people they know everything. They know many things, around the same time. So the way they speak many languages, they travel the world. So I want to be like that person. So it was there and stayed with me. When I was 14, I started actually preparing to be a diplomat. So I went around and asked, look, if you want to be a diplomat, what you should do. So I managed to get some of the exams that, you really have to, answer or pass. And I found like, wow, this is very difficult, but okay, let me start somewhere. Maybe I should memorize all the capitals in the world. Maybe I should start learning about history. So I did this for a few years until I was 16. And then I decided I don't want to study political theory. I don't want to, study economics. I want to study something that I really love, I have passion for, which was chemistry at that time. When the moment comes and I have to decide, maybe I can apply for that national competition. Let's see. It looked a bit weird, but this is what I was really thinking of.
Wow. Okay. So after you went through this competition, which I feel like that is like its own episode, talking all about like what it is and how you kind of got into that. But once you kind of went through that and ended up working as a diplomat, which sounds like that was kind of maybe if you had to like really pinpoint like one of your childhood dreams, right? First of all, was it everything that you like expected it to be?
Yeah, and also would love to go a bit back to the process, because 3.5 years of preparing yourself.
Sure, yeah.
You don't have a curriculum. Also, okay, you want to change career, but you're just at the beginning of your career. So you have almost nothing in terms of experiences, in terms of tools, in terms of skills. Also, the supportive community around you. I didn't have the supportive community because it sounds weird when you tell people around you that, oh, I want to be a diplomat. And okay, you knew nothing about any of those skills to be a diplomat. You knew nothing about politics, global affairs, economics, languages. You really need to build all of that. So I had really to dive deeper into myself and know this is what I really want to do and why I want to do it, why I want to represent my country, when I want to represent my culture, why I want to live this lifestyle. And that somehow anchored, my feeling of, I really want to do this. I really want to do, everything to get to that dream career. Because again, you will be faced with a lot of challenges. People will come, and I remember all the time, people on a daily basis questioning me and my dreams and, saying, oh, you're wasting your time, and sometimes it's very harsh. You're like a loser. You waste your everything. Look at yourself, 2 years and nothing, nothing changed. Look at you, 3 years, nothing changed until the moment that I managed to do it. So with all the struggles, the moment that I got that appointment letter and it's telling me that I've been chosen 1 out of 30 diplomats, among those 2,000 contestants, was a very big day for me. Because again, it's about, validating your dream. You believed in yourself. You had almost nothing, no tools, no skills. You're still in the beginning of your career, but you had your faith in yourself, and you followed few different strategies trying to find a dream and trying to confirm to yourself that you are worthy of achieving those dreams. That was a very, very big day. If I answer your question, diplomacy is one of the most interesting careers because it's very diverse. You get to do different things every single day. And definitely you can talk about that experience and details.
Yeah. I mean, it does sound like something from a TV show, like, like a movie, like The Diplomat, So yeah, if someone, it's funny because I studied political science and international relations in school. So so that was, very interesting to me. And that idea of going around and traveling and learning all these different languages and a global career sounded like really cool to me. So if someone's listening and that sounds really cool to them, what is a diplomat? Like if it just sounds like something from like Homeland, like if a kid is listening who's like 15, how would you define like a diplomat and what they do every day and their purpose? Like, why do we have them?
Exactly. So diplomacy in a couple of words is a career where you serve your country, you represent your country in foreign nations, and you work on bilateral relationships. So if I work right now in somewhere in Europe, this is where I'm trying to mend the relationship, expand the relationship between my country and the other country that I'm serving in. So there are a lot of aspects to that. So, for example, working on bilateral trade, working on infrastructure investment between both countries, politics, cultural. So it gets as diverse as it would, depending on your exact posting. So I worked, for example, in Malawi and that was very bilateral. Luckily enough, because in Africa, we had the small embassies. As a very young junior diplomat, I was 25 years old. I had to cover everything. So you get that exposure to cover almost every aspect of a career diplomat life would be, from politics, from trade, from cultural, from the visa section, from being a consul. Also, because you are very young and you are in a small embassy, you are the chargé d'affaires, which means you are the person in charge when the ambassador is not there, which happens all the time. So you get to meet the president of the country. You get to have bilateral meetings with the foreign minister. So it's a hell of experience, and when you are 25 years old, 2 years like this was a great experience, just putting yourself out there and learning just by doing. And then another experience.
And it's exciting, right?
Exactly. Frightening and exciting at the same time, because, you're starting your career and sometimes you don't know how to do it. And sometimes you don't have a manual for it. But okay, just go out there and do. Just practice and go out and try. Ask. The definition of a successful diplomat is a diplomat who says no for any task that he got assigned. So you shouldn't say no for any task. You should say, okay, how can I do it? And just find a way to do it. Another exciting experience was in the UN. I work in New York in the United Nations. That was a different experience because it's a multinational, multilateral level. So you don't have a bilateral relation that you focus on. Your focus is on the technical parts. For example, at some point I was in the third committee, which is it focused on human rights and peace building and other concepts. So you get to handle a relationship with 100. It depends on the level of the meetings that you're having. So all the way to 196 countries. So that's another interesting approach. You get to learn how to look at the bigger picture. You learn a lot about negotiations. You learn a lot about lobbying. It's a different story. My third experience, I moved to China. So China is another experience. And I call it, in terms of bilateral relationship, it would be one of the highest levels for any diplomat, no matter where you come from. Working in China is a school in itself. You got to learn a lot. And I was lucky to cover bilateral.
Why would you say that it's?
First of all, it's an emerging pole, if I would say, on the political arena. So a lot is happening over the last 20 years or so. So for any diplomats to witness all that progress, wow, there are a lot to learn. Also, because China has become a center in the world, in the same way as the US, there are more things are happening over there. For example, there are a pool of financial institutions that are very similar to the World Bank, and other multinational banks are already set up in China. And I was lucky to join one of them at some point. So I was lucky to be there around that time to witness all that, progress. Also, as a diplomat, your access as a diplomat, one of your tasks is to have access to information all the time. You have always to have access to information because you are the eyes of your country. So how to have access to information means how to build your network. So it's a great experience to be in China. So to sum up the experience as a diplomat, it can go as wide and deep as you want, depending on where you are. You get to learn different languages. So I speak fluent Chinese just because I was in China for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So you get to have that exposure depending on where you are.
What skills and natural abilities would make a great diplomat?
That's a great question. I would say I think the first one is active listening. A good diplomat, you really have to be a good listener because, again, it's about absorbing, not about giving. The second is understanding the cultural context that you're in because, again, you are a messenger of, you are somewhere in the middle. Unless you know the culture and the context that you are in, it's very hard to have that role between both cultures, both countries, both economies. I've seen that all the time. For example, in commercial negotiations over a huge contract, you have two sides sitting on the table and you don't know much about each other culture. And, the norm here is different from the norm here. And you are trying to bridge the gap between both. So I have seen that a lot of negotiations fail just because of that misunderstanding and culture. And as a diplomat, you should a lot of work in that regard. The third is that you really have to be a very powerful negotiator. Negotiation is very powerful, and that includes several aspects below that. So you really have to be patient. You know how to negotiate in a different culture. You need to have a long-term view of things. You need to see the value in whatever you're pursuing, because maybe, the others don't see that. So unless you are the one who was sent to that country to serve your country, and actually the best from that perspective, the best for the country. So you should fight for that, if I could say.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any degrees or, areas of study that, like, I know you did chemistry and you weren't necessarily interested at the time in looking at political theory or economics.
Yeah.
Are there any like really specific, majors or areas of study that somebody would be beneficial for them to do in undergrad and grad school?
I really don't push people that they have to decide something right away, like you have to study this. But I think soft skills are very important, and somehow soft skills are ignored because people tend to focus on the specialization that they spend all their life in. So whether focus on engineering, all the skills are associated with that, or pharmacy, or being a doctor, or but then if you add another layer of soft skills, the skills that you really need to, grow more in your career, or even expand, beyond that, I think this is very powerful. I would mention, again, negotiations comes one of the most important skills that everybody should know a bit about, right? Whether you're negotiating your salary, a raise, negotiating with your wife or husband or partner, it's very important. I get to learn this even just by going out and shopping. I was in China. I wanted to learn a bit about the mindset in China. So I went, okay, go out, practice your language, your Chinese, and learn about negotiations. And I did that for almost a year and a half. And it helped me to negotiate millions of dollars deals after that, and successfully, closing them. So negotiations, I think, is important.
Yeah, that's very interesting that what you're talking about with mindset, and understanding the cultural mindset as opposed to just the person sitting across from you in a negotiation, because it's so ingrained in us, like our cultural mindset. That's such an interesting approach to it. I've never really thought of it that way.
Yeah.
And it can absolutely completely come down to that microcosmic negotiation and going out and learning just from people, everyday people. That's really powerful. Something else you mentioned, talking about soft skills. Yeah, I would imagine that, empathy would come into it to some degree, and understanding, the cultural background and the cultural context, and having that ability to empathize with where they're coming from, I would imagine would also help in negotiations.
100%. I mean, if we can call or recall both cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence, I think mixing both, have a bit of empathy and understanding to, the other side, and what are their intentions, what they really want to have from these negotiations or this deal or whatever. And on the other side, having a bit of cultural intelligence of understanding the context that you're dealing with, where those people are coming from, what do you want to do, all of that. I think it's a prescription for success, because, and I have seen that in hundreds of negotiations, whether as a diplomat or later as a banker. Many of those negotiations fail just because of not having that understanding. And once you have that understanding, culturally, you know what you shouldn't do, because that's an ocean. We can have definitely another episode around that, because that's an ocean of, what you should do, what you should say. What works in a Chinese culture, a Japanese culture, is not the same in a British, French, American, Middle Eastern. So you really need to understand before, going to that country, sitting with, that delegation, discussing what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how to negotiate, how to allow them some time. If you want to invite you, for example, in an Eastern Asian culture, they have to take you out. They have to trust you. That's number one. So first of all, they have to trust you. It's not just about business, and business for business. It's about trusting you and making sure this is going for long term. If it's for short term, they are not interested in having any deal with you or any benefit for both. So it's about trust, and trust should be built over time. Decisions should take a bit of time. They need to go out with you, have dinner with you, even drink with you. They really need to take their time. If you don't really get this from a Western perspective, that okay, let's do the deal and that's it, then no way there's a deal. The same applies to other countries in the Middle East and Africa and Latin America. So there's several dimensions, including your leadership style, how decisions are being made, your respect to time. What looks as a strict time frame in one culture looks as a very loose time frame in another culture. So it's a very interesting space.
Yeah, that's so interesting, just about how the trust aspect, because there is definitely understood time constraint in America, where it's like, okay, like let's get this done as quickly as we can, right? And if that's not a thing in China or in Eastern countries, I'm sure that comes across as just incredibly rude to them, right? And for Americans, it's like, why is this taking so, like,
Exactly.
there's so much stuff to be done, right? So that's really interesting. That's really cool. So you were in diplomacy for a long time. You ended up kind of navigating towards investment banking, which I'm sure you used all those, negotiation skills in. How was that, and where did that decision come from?
The decision came, I think, my last year in China. I was already 9-10 years in my diplomacy career. And somehow that existential question is like, okay, what's next, in my career? I enjoyed so much my career so far. There are a lot of struggles, a lot of ups and downs, but somehow you could see that, wow, okay, the vision that you had when you were, just starting your career to have a successful diplomacy career, it paid off, some successes that I'm really proud of until now. Very, very, very high level. I'm proud of them. But then also the question of what's next, popped up at some point. And for me, I was like, okay, I think I'm at the peak of my career. I think I'm not able to, go beyond that in my career. And for me, just to go, diplomacy cycle is you spend 4 years abroad, 2 years, for example, back home, 4, 2, 4, 2. And I thought, okay, going back home a couple of years and going again to another country, I didn't see the value that I could add again. And I thought, okay, what if I look for another challenge, a whole new challenge? And I just tried to look around, dig deeper again into myself, see the value. And luckily, because the last 3 years in my embassy post, I was in charge of Chinese infrastructure projects back home in Egypt. I developed a whole new skill in that. So I was the focal point of all those projects. I learned a lot about financing infrastructure projects. I built a variety of connections and network with, companies, banks, and it was a very interesting time. So somehow that looked like the culmination of that. I got that position in a multinational bank, very similar to the World Bank. It's called AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. That was in 2016, and the bank was just starting. So imagine $100 billion multinational bank, which is a startup at the same time. So it was just starting a few months before I joined. So it was an amazing experience, because imagine, joining the World Bank 75 years ago when it was just starting. I work in investment department. I didn't have a proper investment experience, but I accepted the challenge. And I thought, okay, it's time again to learn, take your career to another curve. again, anchoring that to the previous experience of pivoting from a pharmacist to a diplomat, and then why not? I did it once. I can do it again. Let's do it. was also very helpful. Exactly. Was very, very helpful. So
Yeah.
I did it again. I just had to accept it's an opportunity coming to me. A lot of people, when they get opportunities, just push it back and say, oh, no, I cannot do this. No, impossible. Just had to have an open mindset to accept that opportunity and say, why not? And say, I just need to prove that I'm worthy to take that opportunity. And this is how my life changed again. I decided to do an MBA, which I did while working because I didn't have the finance investment background and I wanted to have that, which helped me a lot. So over 4 years, I was in charge of business development across the map from Asia all the way to Latin America and Africa. And I was lucky to bring a project worth of $1.1 billion using, again, as a non-banker, as an ex-diplomat, I tapped into my strength as a diplomat and using my cultural intelligence across, negotiating across countries. I can claim that I brought something new to the table that even bankers there didn't have it from my experience. Very quickly, I was assigned to manage relationship with the governments because, again, I had that. I was good at. So
Sure.
also the idea of how to tap into your strength, bring them with you to the new career, is really very, very powerful.
Yeah. And I think that's something a lot of people kind of know. Like, I'm really good at this, and I know that it can be applied to this. But I think there's a gap, right, where people get stuck. And it's like, well, how do I convince this hiring manager in a totally different industry that I can, in fact, do this? So if
Exactly.
somebody, and now you do, so we're gonna fast forward a little bit, but so now you do coaching, right? And you work with people to do this, right? How, if somebody is really stuck in their career and they're like, I have an idea of where I want to go, but all these transferable skills that we're talking about, like it's really hard for a hiring manager to look at a person
Yeah.
who is in a different industry and says like, I do have these skills, like here they are in my resume, it's hard to convince them next to another candidate who comes from the same industry or comes from a similar industry and doesn't have to like convince, right? So how does somebody do that?
Yeah, it's a tough question because the majority of people are looking at what is out there in the market and trying to match with that. So the mistake that they do is that they see the need in the market and match with that. Most probably all those opportunities are for specialists, people who spend all their life in that career. And as a hiring manager, I got trained to find only expert in that, so I want to find somebody who has done this for 10, 15 years. I don't see the value that an outsider can bring to the table. So the way I did it, the way I help other people to do it as well in my coaching, is to tap into your world, where you see your passions are, where you see your values are, where you want to see your life a few years from now. Look at your strength, look at your set of skills that you can transfer with you, and to everyone's surprise, I just give you an example. My chemistry, I thought it's a skill that I will never use again. But when I moved to China, I started by learning Chinese. So I learned the first year just Mandarin full time, focus on the language and the culture. To my surprise, I didn't have any problem in reading and writing Chinese characters. And I didn't know why that was happening. When later I understood a bit about a concept called analogical thinking, I knew the link between chemistry and how chemistry helped me to learn Chinese very quickly, because both are very visual. Both have almost the same logic. So even, organic chemistry, you have the same logic. You draw the compound from left to right, from up, down. There are always endings that mean something. The same applies to Chinese characters, left to right, up to down.
No way. Oh, that's so interesting.
Can you imagine? So
cool.
The idea of even that the skill that you think it's going vain and no, I think I can transfer this skill to another skill. I'm still not imagining. So all those skills can be transferred with you, plus your passions, your values, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses. And then imagine an opportunity out there even before it exists, and fit everything within that opportunity, and go to that organization and say to them, guys, I can help you with this and this and this, that no one inside this organization is doing this. And this is what actually I did in the bank. I imagined what I could add. I imagined my role. I created my own role in the bank. And I went out there and I say, guys, I can do this and this and this for you. No one inside can do this job. And this is why I got hired, actually. So there is a way to flip the script, if I could say.
Sure. Yeah. And I love that. I mean, that's something that I say all the time. Like, you can create your own career, especially now. I mean, with all of the openness through this, Zoom and all the things, and social media. So, I mean, there are so many careers out there that people don't even know exist, right? And that they can literally create one just based on their experience. And that's so interesting that you did that at such a high level, right? Because we kind of, that seems pretty unattainable and not real. So that's really cool that that's how you did it. And it's almost like, it kind of lends itself to the whole, I think 2023 was like the year of personal branding. Like, I heard that term so much, but it kind of lends itself to that, where it's like you are your own little business. Like, you have to kind of package yourself that way and think of yourself that way when it comes to looking at careers, even if you're working within an organization. So one thing that, I wanted to ask you about, and it kind of falls within all of this in terms of, transferable skills. What is reskilling and upskilling?
Reskilling is learning skills that can help you go a bit wide in your career and give yourself another chance to go beyond your expertise. Share an example. If I've been always a pharmacist and I wanted to be a diplomat, so I had to learn negotiations, which I didn't have as a pharmacist. So that's a reskilling. Upskilling is getting the skills that are needed in terms of growing more in your career and in your company, including leadership skills, management skills, which again, it can apply again to reskilling. Reskilling, upskilling has been very, very trending, very important right now in the age of AI, when AI can steal your job, when you can lose your job for AI. I think reskilling and upskilling have been very instrumental to help you to be in control of over your career, decide the next step, go a few steps ahead of AI because it's coming anyway.
You have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it will be here. You work with a lot of people, you work with a lot of professionals. Have you noticed, and maybe you haven't, maybe this isn't a thing, but is there something, like, how can somebody differentiate just being in a bad funk, like being just in like a lull in their career versus like knowing it's time to change? Because I think everybody experiences kind of like a blah feeling at some point, in their career. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to like uproot yourself and change your whole trajectory. But is there like a common situation or sign, or, is there something that you've noticed that it's like you are ready, like you really need to move on?
Yeah, I mean, working with different people, I've seen if this feeling sustain longer than 6 months, 6 months is enough to say, okay, I think I need a change. There might be a few manifestations of that. For example, burnout. Being burnout doesn't mean necessarily that you really need to change your job. It could mean that you might need some time off. You might need to relax a bit. But then it's also a sign, the problem with people is don't see the signs of burnout, and they burn themselves all the way until the last moment. It's like, okay, I must stop right now. So that they leave their jobs or, whatever risky decision they have to take. But there are signs of burnout, which if you could see a bit earlier and you could forecast why this is happening, is it lack of passion for whatever I'm doing? There is some pressure at work. Okay, I still love the industry, but maybe I don't like my team anymore, or I have a new boss, or, but definitely lasting longer than 6 months is a sign that, you might need a change. And a change means a change.
Yeah, that's a good, solid, like practical time frame, and I think that is super helpful because time goes by pretty quickly, it's like all of a sudden it's Christmas, and I think that that's a great little container for
Yeah,
people to test it out in and notice like, okay, it's been 4 months. Do I still feel that way? Or get to 9 months and it's like, wow, like this is like killing me. So that's great. I think one issue that people have is one, they're unhappy in their career, but they don't really even know where they want to go, right? So it's kind of hard to do anything about it. Like,
yeah,
how do you define your
yeah,
passions?
yeah. That's a great question because again, I think the main problem of almost everybody is stuck somewhere is I would love to change, but I don't know what to do next. And this is why
Yeah.
exactly practically I try to create that my methodology, the passion blueprint, because every time I wanted to change, also I didn't know what to do next. And I tried different, strategies and tips here and there until maybe learn the hard way how to do it. Maybe the second time I go better, the third time I go better, but it's still hard. So the majority of people who want to change, they don't do an orientation phase. They don't go through a proper orientation phase where they get to know themselves a bit better. They got to know what do they want in life. They don't align things together, their passions, values, all of that. Um, and this is why I created that orientation phase where people need to just start by reflecting on their life, dive deeper into every aspect of their life. And let's imagine this analog just to describe it to the audience. For example, we are driving a car together from New York to San Francisco, for example. So it's a bit of a long journey. It will take a few days, for example, and we need some elements with us along the journey. The first, we need enough gas, right? Second, we need a GPS with us. A third, we need a final address. If you don't have enough gas, we'll run out of gas somewhere in the middle. We'll never be able to get to our destination, right? The second is a GPS,
Mhm.
because if you don't have a GPS, we'll get lost, I don't know, dozens or hundreds of times in the middle.
Yeah.
And a final destination, because there is no benefit of having a GPS without having an address okay, put down that address and let's reach to our destination. So if we apply this on our life or our career, enough gas means enough passion for whatever we're doing. And if I don't have enough passion for what I'm doing, I will run out of gas, I will stop somewhere, whether it manifests itself as a burnout, whether I hate my job, whether I hate my team, whatever it is, but I don't want to do this job anymore. And the problem with passions is our passions shift and change most of the time. We think that our passions are always the same, but I'm sure that both our passions 10 years
Yes.
ago, right, were completely different from now. And 10 years from now would be completely different as well. The second is your GPS is your values. So if you don't know your values, if you don't know your core values, you'll get lost in your life and your career. If I work in a career or a job that doesn't fulfill my values, I'm lost. And it happened to me personally a few times when I was somewhere stuck and freedom is a value, for example, and I feel like I'm locked in a place
Mhm.
where I don't enjoy my freedom anymore. And a final destination means imagining an ideal lifestyle. Like imagining, wow, this is the best life I could ever have. For example, if I love traveling, I want to have travel all the time, part of my life. Where is my ideal home should be, how it looks like, how is my ideal weekend looks like, where I should I work from home, where I work from the beach, where I work from, so imagining
Yeah.
that, right? And then merging all those together, your values, your passions, an ideal lifestyle together. What you want to be the coming few years is somewhere in the middle between your passions, your values, and your ideal lifestyle.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I mean, it's a great analogy because it makes sense, right? And I think just the concept that your passions change and just
Yeah.
knowing that, I think gives people a lot of freedom, right? And just admitting that. And even your lifestyle before kids, your lifestyle is going to look a lot different than
Yeah.
like once you have kids. Like I'm not spending my weekend like going to the playground is not something that I would have done before, but
Exactly.
now that's something we do. So, I mean, it just changes, which I think is really interesting. And I think that's a great place for people to start. The values thing for sure. I mean, I think that's such a great exercise for anybody to do at any point, even if you're not, stuck or anything. It's just good to kind of like check in with yourself with that,
Exactly.
because they change. So what is coming up next for you?
I mean, I had my recent book, Time to Move On. It was out this year, where I speak about the 7 career myth that people should bust before finding the dream career. For example, we
Hmm.
spoke about the supreme specialist myth. The only way to succeed in life to specialize all your life in one career, spend all your life there, get promoted, you're good. So I'm proving that this is a myth,
Hmm.
and to agree as a first step that this is a myth, it opens a lot of doors for you. That oh, I shouldn't be like ants and bees who specialize all their life in one job, and I created as a human being who can explore different things and do different things in life. So that's a first step to pursue. My next book is The Passion Project. So in Time to Move On, I talked about why you should change. In the next, I talk about the how to change, and including that methodology, passion blueprint. I'm describing it in details. I'm very busy right now building a nonprofit organization with the purpose of helping hopefully 1 million orphan kids to dream big about their lives and their careers. Somehow I saw the value in that. It has been a cause very close to my heart, and it changed my life several times. I think it also helped me to transition in my career when I was giving to that cause. Life give me back. And somehow I want to think big for that. So I want to help 1 million orphan kids to dream big about their lives and their careers. And then whatever their dreams are, I want to go out extra mile, help them also to achieve those dreams. So it's a big part of my work right now.
Oh my gosh. So that's like a whole nother, how did that come to you? How did that cause present itself to you?
I think it back to my teenager time. It somehow was embedded in my religious belief. I mean, as a Muslim, we grew up as you are encouraged to help orphans, and somehow it's like the ones who support orphans in whatever way. Somehow it's like you hack the process. You get the shortcut to be a good person. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I would love to do this. And I was just giving from my pocket all the time, pocket money all the time. And the more I gave, the more life gave me back. And the more I gave, the more life. And like if I have a dream, I want to be a diplomat. I used to give a lot to that, and I see the blessing I had in my life, and that helped me as well in my careers. And I decided after all those transformation that I think I should do something much bigger, which is that nonprofit. So we are building a platform. Hopefully, I'm building a big team. We want to inspire those kids all around, developing nations everywhere, teaching them how to dream about their lives. And then whatever the dream is whether it to be an entrepreneur, whether it be a musician, an artist, an actor, whatever it is, I want to help them all the way to achieve those dreams as well.
Well, that's amazing. That makes us all look super lazy. That's amazing. Well, once you get that off the ground and going, we'll have you back to talk all about that, because I would love to hear. I mean, clearly that's like a very noble cause. And I think it's something that the world needs. So thank you for doing that. And, in the meantime, in the show notes, we'll include everything on how our listeners can reach out to you and connect with you. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you're like, I need to talk about this?
I think we cover pretty much at least the basic. We can definitely, in another time, focus on one cause of this, whether it's cultural intelligence, whether it's the nonprofit, whatever. But I enjoyed so much our conversation. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you.
No, thank you for coming on. Keep your eyes out for Mustafa's 2 books. We're going to include all of his socials in the show notes. And please, please, please reach out to him if you have any questions. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so grateful for your precious time and energy. And if anything resonated with you, please feel free to share with a friend and subscribe. If you're interested in career coaching, I would love to hear from you. Email me at courtney@resume-careers.com and follow me on Instagram at CourtneyAustinPage. Thank you so much and see you next week.